Welcome to Off the Couch, where psychology meets everyday life. I'm Dr. Greg Cason here with Brian Gomez, producer, and Tony Sweet on the board. Hi, Tony.
Howdy.
So, Brian, today we're going to do something special because we're going to be talking about a study to help you because you're heading out tonight to go to Europe.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to talk about a study that will help you save some money, a psychological study, as well as to give you a lot of tips to help you on your 10 days while in Europe. But first, we're going to talk about psychology in the news. As everybody knows, the Olympics is now concluded. But it seems to have put a special focus on athletes' mental health this year. And this is what was kind of intriguing to me. Although mental health was talked about in the previous Olympics, in the Tokyo Olympics, this year it took a special place. So I wanted to kind of touch on a few things that happened because Simone Biles, who really came out of the Tokyo Olympics with a bit of a scar. A lot of people were very angry and upset about her because she pulled out of the previous Tokyo Olympics. So she's now become this unstoppable force here in Paris. She's won 3 gold medals and a silver in gymnastics. She won best all round, and her journey to mental health improvement has played a significant role in her success. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what happened to her in Tokyo. Do you guys remember what happened?
I do, and I also saw the documentary on Netflix about her. Did you see it yet?
I didn't.
Ooh, no, but now I want to watch it.
No, it's really good. It talks a lot about what the mental health side of what happened.
Well, I wish I had seen that documentary. Shame on me. But yeah, she overcame something called the twisties. And the twisties in gymnastics is when a gymnast can no longer do their twisting skills that they've done 1,000 times before. But I kind of want to explain the twisties a little bit more because I think it doesn't make sense, because I remember 4 years ago, a lot of the people, especially on more conservative media, they were quite angry at her for saying that she had mental difficulties. She just needed to get over it and just get on with it. She's letting the United States down by pulling out of this meet. But it made a great deal of sense to me, especially when you know what the twisties are. That sounds like it's not bad, but this is actually pretty bad. So it affects your spatial awareness and performance. So think about what gymnasts do. They do really death-defying stunts many times. They're flipping upside down, they're going and spinning in the air and going upside down a lot. They could fall and hit their head, or they could break something very easily. So if you are not having good spatial awareness, where you're aware of what's around you and you're not able to perform the tasks in the same way, it's going to actually pose a great deal of safety risk to yourself. That shift in your focus then goes from the performance to your anxiety that you're having, and there's a shift away from the autonomic processes that are essential for high-risk maneuvers, and the athlete develops a heightened sense of their thoughts. Did they talk about this in the documentary?
They did, actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we talked a lot about this.
Well, the twisties, as far as I can explain to like an average person, it is something like a panic attack. And in fact, if we were to diagnose it, that would be probably the diagnosis we would put, although I think it's a little bit different for a gymnast. I actually like what Simone Biles said. I saw her in an interview where I thought she gave a great explanation. She said, imagine that you've driven a car every day of your life and you know exactly how to drive a car. You get in the car and you drive it. You know where to put your feet and your hands, and it's no problem. You don't think about driving the car. You're just driving the car. She goes, and suddenly you get in the car and you don't know where your hands go and you don't know where your feet go, and you can't operate the car, even though you've done it 1,000 times before.
Oh, that's freaky.
It's really, really freaky. So you kind of lose awareness. And we know this happens in anxiety because people get something called depersonalization, where they'll actually feel like they're separate from their body. Like they feel like they're like, well, something's happening here, and they could even have derealization where they feel like they're not even in reality. But these are more severe symptoms, but certainly they can happen during a panic attack. So this is like a panic attack in the sense that you start over-focusing on physiological symptoms. So usually what happens, just so you know, guys, is with a panic attack, and most people don't know this because most people, even those who experience a panic attack, aren't as bothered by the beginning of the panic attack as they are by when the panic attack comes into full view. But the beginning is usually some kind of physiological event that happens in the body. So you have some kind of like heart flutter or a twinge or some kind of, change in your physiology that then you become very focused on, and it starts to really scare you quite a bit. So you begin then to lose control of your thoughts and your behaviors, and you start to have more and more catastrophic thoughts. So think of it this way. If we have suddenly our heart races for no reason, and we think, oh, my heart's racing, what's going on there? And then you start to over-focus on it, and then you might start to heat up, and then you might start to become more shaky, you might become more sweaty, and you might think, oh no, something's happening, and then you just get more and more focused, and you get more and more catastrophic in your thinking till you finally end up with something along the lines of, I'm going to die, I'm going to have a heart attack. So you tend to have these catastrophic thoughts at the end of a panic attack. They're usually something like having a heart attack and dying, losing control or going crazy, and then you have this fight or flight response that just becomes super active. And when you have a fight or flight response, you can't do the very thing that a gymnast or an elite athlete needs to do, which is to relax into their routine, because performing at that level, and this will really bore some people, requires both a sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. That means they kind of need to be in this sweet spot for performance where they can both relax and hyper-focus and perform. So they need both the energy and the relaxation to all be in line.
I was an athlete
Oh.
in high school and college. I was an All-American. Thank you very much. But we used to call that psyching yourself out.
Psyching yourself out. Excellent.
Yeah.
Psyching yourself out. And other sports, choking in basketball.
Choking, yeah.
The yips in golf and cricket. The yips.
Yep.
And target panic in archery and precision sports. So every sport seems to have a name for this because every sport has this happen. But that's really interesting. I didn't know that was football, correct?
Yeah,
right?
football and even track when I was in track. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So very good. But yes, this is what happens when you can't perform, and you kind of, as an athlete, you do kind of need to be in that sweet spot, don't you? You need to be both excited and relaxed at the same time. So she really had to face a big risk because she had the twisties in the Tokyo Olympics. This was 4 years ago. Remember, this was just the beginning of the pandemic. It was 2020. And she decided she needed to pull out because she could not risk both hurting herself, which sounded pretty secondary to the bigger one for her, which was hurting her team and their chances to win the medal. Because if she hurt herself, if she was injured, if she performed poorly, then her team would get penalized. So she made that choice to pull out because of her own mental health condition in that moment, which was incredibly courageous. Like, I don't know what we would do. I don't know what I would do if faced with that same decision. Do you know, Brian?
No, I don't know. I mean, even the point, everything before to get to that point is just, so much that they put into, so much work that they put in, and then for it to be at the end like that, it's such a sad moment and scary and so much pressure, I would say, not only from like your team or anything from the sport, but like the entire world is watching you at this point.
The entire world, and you've spent exactly what you said. You spent your entire life preparing for this. She's one of the world's most elite athletes. She has the whole world looking at her, the United States depending on her, thinking, oh, she's going to win the golds. And then, boom, she pulls out. And so a lot of people were very angry. But instead of I remember at the time being kind of puzzled by people's anger about her mental health. Just get over it. Just get over it. So unsympathetic. It was cold. People were just nasty. And as she describes it, she says, people sit at home. She goes, I know, they sit at home. They're eating chips. They whip out their phone and they just start commenting. So, she understands the dynamic, but wow, how cruel. She spent her lifetime preparing for this. And instead of us going, oh, wow, that's, this was a tough decision, you can find out more maybe, but how can people harshly judge her like they did? And they came down on her. That hammer came down hard.
And I think it also because the position she was in, because, I think she started, was it 2012 was her first one, I think?
Oh, probably. I'm sorry, I don't know her whole career.
I think it was 2012, her first Olympics, and then 16. So I think her position where she was at, she had already proven herself. And the expectation was there, but she still had already proven herself. I think if it was her first time at the Olympics, she probably wouldn't have dropped out. I mean, that's
interesting.
From what I feel, that because she, at the time in 2012, she had something to prove. This one, she's like, I've already proved it, so I know what the consequences would be if I don't pull out for myself and my team. So
yeah, I mean, I was really impressed how team focused she is, and you kind of have to be. Yeah,
you can tell.
Yeah. She's very team focused, and I think that's what made her such an incredible athlete. And she even feels this huge responsibility to her team. She, that she knew pulling out would hurt them, but staying in would hurt them more.
Right.
So she's faced with a difficult challenge. She then started to attend to her mental health. She may have been attending to it before, but she certainly made it a focus of going to therapy. Her mental resilience is she accredits with allowing her to meet the high expectations to perform under pressure. And it's interesting that, she's also said how much this has helped her in Paris. In these, Biles, she attends to her mental health. She speaks to her therapist every morning before a competition and every Thursday without fail. And she also had her therapist on call during the Olympics as well. I don't know if she actually called her or her or him. I don't know even who the therapist is. But
Dr. Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say if she was mine, but that's... I think she should go to a sports psychologist. If she came to me, I would say that to her, just so you know. Because I'm not a sports psychologist, although I do know some things about this. I think having a specialist is really, for someone like that, is really quite key. She credits her mental work over the years as a key factor for her success. And reason is, a sports psychologist is still trained to do mental health. It's just they're so familiar with the sports world that they can help with all those kind of nuanced things, things that other people don't understand. Just like I worked a lot in the medical world, and I do see a lot of physicians and medical people in my practice. And I think it's just basically, they have all the same normal problems as everyone else. That isn't any different. It's just that their way their lives work and how they have to deal with things, that's the specialty that you kind of lean into once in a while, that you understand their world.
And one thing real quick that I watched in the Netflix series is because it was COVID, and it's, athletes and a lot of people are very superstitious. Well, she's used to looking up into the stands and seeing her parents. And at the time, there was nobody in the audience. So she was performing alone, without anybody cheering her on, and seeing her parents in the crowd. And so I think there was a isolation that probably also played into the anxiety. So,
wow.
And then she also was dealing with where a lot of these athletes were coming out of being, molested by that one doctor, and that was just starting to surface. So I think there was a lot of stuff she was dealing with.
I think
that-
there was a lot of stuff going on in the world at that time
Yeah.
to even,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that everybody was going through. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't even imagine not having the crowd in such like an iconic moment in your life
Yeah.
that you kind of almost need the crowd to perform, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure.
Yeah. I
Well, they
remember
certainly
thinking
give you
about that.
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, she really recovered in quite a remarkable way. She got those 3 gold medals, but she also got a silver medal on the floor exercise despite an injury. And she went out there with a protective boot because apparently during the warm-up, she injured herself. She still went out there. And if you're watching on video, that Tony put up a picture of the iconic picture where Simone Biles won the silver and Jordan Childs had the bronze. We'll talk about that in a second. And they're with, I think her name is Rebecca Andrade.
From Brazil.
Yes, she's from Brazil. And this was the first time 3 Black women had won, all 3 events. And this was just a really iconic picture where Jordan Childs and Simone Biles are bowing to the gold medal winner. And it's just it gives you goosebumps to see this picture.
And of course, the conservatives were mad about because she bowed.
What?
A lot of the conservatives that were probably mad at her from dropping out were mad that she bowed to another country.
I had not heard that, and that really is shocking to me because to me, like
Showing
as
sportsmanship.
that's what it looked
Yeah.
like to me. It looked like we're in this together, and this is good sportsmanship, and this is how you show letting go. It shows how you say yes, you won.
That's what the Olympics are all about, supporting each other.
I think it's cool that she was able to show the world that when you take care of yourself, you can come back and like literally destroy it. You know, that's a really cool lesson. I felt like that was put out there. Just like a good example. It's like when you really take care of yourself, you can come back and really get the gold.
Well, and she really did. And she won the gold. Also, I said when she won the floor exercise, that she got silver in floor exercise. She won the gold in team competition, individual all-round, and vault. I mean,
Nice.
girl is...
You go, girl.
She's pretty amazing. So the other athlete that I talked about, the American gymnast Jordan Childs, she actually is kind of interesting because she was given 3rd place. So what happened is that basically, I don't know the score differences here, but bottom line is, I believe Romania or one of the, Eastern Bloc countries, but I can't remember. They challenged her. I think it was basically Jordan Childs. Basically, they looked at it. The American, they were going to get it for tied scores or something. Anyway, the American judge went up and said, "What? Wait a minute. Her routine was very difficult." So the judges gave her an extra point for difficulty, or an extra 1/10 of a point. It went up just enough to give her Jordan Childs the bronze medal, the American, the bronze medal. And so she got that, and then the other country that was tossed went and they challenged that, and so Jordan Childs did kind of an interesting thing because Jordan Childs, there she is holding up her medal. Yeah, she pulled out from social media because this was all so difficult. And what we talked about before is social media can be rather vitriolic place. If it was all support and love and roses, then Jordan Childs, I'm sure, would not be pulling out of social media. But, she pulled herself out to maintain her own mental health while she's going through this challenge. And basically, they went through this challenge. And I guess, reading the story is just very confusing about the amounts of time. But I guess the judges believe that the Americans you had 1 minute to challenge a score after you're given it. And the American coaches were 4 seconds late. That's what they said. So they took the medal away from Jordan Childs. That is rough. Can you imagine that?
I would cry. I don't know. I would be devastated. Because you didn't just get it taken away, but the entire world saw you get it taken away.
I think the U.S. is petitioning that, but it probably won't
I think
get
it
overturned.
failed. Yeah. I mean, we'll see, but
I'd be in therapy every day. Every day. Literally.
well, she knows that, indeed she really did have the third best performance, because it was just a scoring issue to begin with, but because it was challenged too late, they're giving it to places 4 and 5, the tie. So, yeah, it's tough. So Simone Biles, to go back to her, despite her success, still faces negative comments online. She's still getting it, and I'm sure Jordan Childs is too. It's unfortunate. Simone Biles says she continues to work on her mental health to cope with such criticism. And Biles notes that the negative voices are getting quieter, reflecting her own resilience. So she's not as bothered by them as she once was. But people, picked on her. This is what kind of shocked me. They picked on her appearance, her hairstyle. I know. It's like, okay, you can pick on maybe like her athleticism. I don't know. But, I mean, we're really getting petty. Right. But yeah. So she emphasizes both mental and physical health are equally important, and that she puts a lot of time into each. She responded to a message of empowerment to young girls online, telling young girls to stand their power and believe themselves. But this was possibly the favorite quote I saw of her, is she identifies as a honey badger in the gym for her tenacity, but a sloth outside because she's outside, she's relaxed. And, this made a lot of sense. Very, very high performers, they've put all their focus and energy in their high performance task, and outside of their high performance task, they're on the couch. So I thought that was pretty wonderful. So it takes us to the mental health was also kind of an interesting side story that I found about diver Tom Daley. And this was interesting. Tom Daley is one of the most decorated divers in Olympic history, in Britain's history, excuse me. We just put up a picture of him winning a team medal, silver medal, with his diving partner. He also has a passion for knitting, which became kind of a focus of this Olympics, although it was certainly happening during the Tokyo Olympics as well. He knitted a jumper at the Paris 2024 Olympics. A jumper, just so you know, Brian, because you're going to London, a jumper in British English is a sweater.
Got it. Thank you for that.
In fact, that's it. It's his jumper, his sweater has Paris 24 on it with the picture of the Eiffel Tower. La Tour Eiffel, by the way, Brian. Right.
Oh,
anyway.
Thank you so much.
The mental health benefits of knitting. So he had this experience in Tokyo Olympics where he found knitting to have a positive impact on his mental health. And this made a great deal of sense to me, because what can knitting bring you? What do you think?
Relaxation. It's just focused. I feel like you just kind of soothe out,
Excellent. That is exactly it. So it's really a mindfulness exercise, or no different than doing a meditation.
I was going to say meditation. I feel like it's a meditative state that you're in.
Mm-hmm. So, because it's a focused activity that you're doing repetitive, and you're not just randomly knitting, you have to be very focused because you make mistakes. He's trying to put in patterns, so he's really working very hard to do these things, so which will cause you to have absolute focus. Remember when I talked about athletes, they need a combination, and this is so boring, I suppose, of a parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous response. The parasympathetic is going to cause them to be relaxed. So when they go into a focused, hyper-focused state, it allows them to have that relaxation and clear their mind, so that then when they perform, they can be in that really clear-cut phase to be able to perform. So usually knitting is associated with older women. Didn't you think that? Did you think that?
I did.
Yeah. But knitting was initially reserved for men in Europe during the Middle Ages. It was quite a specialized craft. So it also knitting can help you feel like you have a pride of accomplishment where, meditating, you don't walk away with any like gifts to give at Christmas time. So I think this is actually kind of nice. He said, Tom Daly said, knitting helps him switch off and serves as his therapy. And he, also knitting has a social aspect. And if you look at his Instagram, it's basically mostly knitting. Him showing off his knitting, him doing this. And, he has a family. He's a diver. He has got all these things going on. But the knitting allows him to kind of connect with a lot of people. I was interested to find out that Ryan Gosling also knits. Do you know who that is? Yes. And also, this reminded me when I was in 5th grade, I remember hearing about Rosie Greer. Do you remember Rosie Greer? You were too young, Tony. Rosie Greer was a big football player back in the day. Rosie Greer didn't knit, but he did needlepoint. And he even published a book on needlepoint. So he was one of those big NFL players, and thank you. Yes, and he was really into needlepoint, and really for the very same reasons that we're talking now. So it's interesting, these athletes find their way to calm their mind and really focus.
That's cool that they really know their bodies and how to make their bodies work in like the most efficient way.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, it can help people in these elite athletes are very high pressure jobs. I mean, no matter how you slice it, they're very, very high pressure. But they also found that knitting in general helps with the cognitive functions in children. Really? So I thought that was kind of interesting. Study I didn't know about.
We have to try it.
Right? We all start. Let's make it a trend.
Let's do a whole show just watching you guys knit for the whole hour.
Just clicks and clacks of knitting. I'll do it and whisper, and we'll have it.
Have an ASMR.
Probably,
and I'll chew.
Yeah, that'll be a big one. So, Brian, you're going to Europe tonight.
Tonight, I fly out in a few hours, actually.
It's very exciting. He joined us. So when you're in Europe, do you carry cash or do you carry credit cards, or you use both?
Both. Well, the cash is just in case. Credit cards aren't like.
So credit cards are number 1 and cash is number 2.
Yes.
Maybe you'll rethink that. Because we asked the question, do you spend more or less with cashless payments?
Oh, way more. Way more, because you don't see what's happening, and then you look at your bank account or your statement, and you're like, who did this? Who did this? Mm-hmm. It was me.
So this was a study conducted by the University of Adelaide. This is an Australian university. And they focused on the impact of cash payments on spending behavior in general. And this was published in the Journal of Retailing. I love that there are journals for very, very specialized fields. And this is a psychological study published in the Journal of Retailing. And there's a fun fact about this article, which I loved. The article is titled literally, "Less Cash, More Splash?" So they did a meta-analysis. That's where they do a study of studies. They got 71 studies from across 17 countries. So this is an internationally spanned study because it was a meta-analysis. And this is data from over 11,000 participants. And the main results are exactly what you said, Brian. Cashless payments lead to higher spending compared to cash. It's actually known as the cashless effect. And it's particularly observed in purchases. What kind of purchases? What do you think, guys?
Food.
No, not food.
Oh.
Well, I mean, maybe, but you see it worse. Like you spend the most money in what area? Think about where you really, like if you had to bring out the dollars versus bring out the credit card, what are you less hesitant to buy? Something luxurious, something status signaling. So when people buy, when they're traveling in Europe, and I'm guilty of this. I bought a purse for somebody.
Gifts? Oh.
Gifts? Well, but it's status things. Yeah. Okay. I bought a very nice bag for somebody.
I thought about it, like maybe going luxury shopping because it's a bit cheaper over there.
It's a bit cheaper.
Yeah, sometimes it's cheaper, or like you get like the tax refund whenever you're
Right. But then you have to actually do it. You know, it requires you to. I mean, I was like, oh, yeah, we won't have to pay taxes. But, you know, that requires a whole process that I somehow bypassed. Yeah. Anyway, so jewelry, luxury goods, any status signaling thing you're going to end up paying a lot more money for. So really know that. So if you're going to buy something status signaling, any luxury goods, translate it to cash.
Oh, I did think about it. I was like, okay.
Get cash and pay for it.
No, well, yeah, that's what.
Okay.
Because I have cash I'm taking, but it's like that's just in case. But if I don't use it as a just in case, I'm going to use it for luxury goods.
There you go.
This was interesting to me that this is a stronger effect during periods of economic growth. And this makes sense, too, because when we think things are going well, we think, we're going to be okay. I can put this on a credit card. I'll have money in a month or two to pay it off. Haven't you thought this?
Many times.
I still think,
do.
Yeah, no,
Currently.
I totally identify with this study. And it's funny, I held on to the study because I'm like, we should do it, and then I'm like, you're going to Europe. This is exactly what you need. The cashless effect is not observed in tipping or donating or anything pro-social. So when you're doing something to help out another person, people don't give more with their credit card.
True.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, well. So they recommend traditional methods such as tipping jars. So those tipping jars that we see, not really, not really a bad thing. They really do help people get tips. So I always feel guilty when they say, should you leave 10% for this person who just gave you a can of Coke, when you're paying for it with a credit card?
Yeah, I wouldn't
and they always ask you if you want to leave a tip.
I don't feel guilty.
Yeah, there's always a tip for everything now where I'm
like, that's another problem, which is over
I don't get a tip.
I know. They should. Look at us.
We just carry around tip jars.
Right.
So if you're going to go to Europe, if you're going to do things, it's good to travel with cash and to try to pay with cash. This was hard for me because I'm like, I don't like to do that. And I don't like to translate to cash. And you're going to be in England where they have pounds, and then you go to the Europe or the EU, and they have the euro. And when I spent a lot of time, I remember being in Paris, in France and in Italy, and you'd have to have these francs, and then you'd have lira, and the lira was so confusing because it'd be like 2 million lira for, $50 or something. It was whatever it was. It was like crazy. And then francs were difficult because they were 8 francs to a dollar or something like that. So it was always a translation. Now the euro is almost exactly the same as the dollar, so it will make sense. They really track pretty closely. So I don't know. We'll check back with you to see if you did that.
After my trip, we'll see.
So the physical act of handing over cash makes spending more noticeable, so you tend to rein in your behavior more. This is a concern for people, basically we're seeing as we're shifting to a cashless society, and people are whining about, a lot of people are doing a lot of luxury signaling, but this may be a kind of a hidden reason that's happening. A lot of people feel like they can afford things that perhaps they cannot. So if you use cash, it'll help you be more aware of your spending behavior.
Well, it makes sense. You see the cash literally leave your hands and get smaller and smaller.
I know.
But you're just like, no, come back.
Cash on the table, baby. So because Brian's going, we've already done a story about how people do not want tourists in Europe. We've already done that. So
I've been practicing my French too. I'm not amazing, but I'm trying.
Sell us something in French, Brian.
Oh, no. Je m'appelle Brion.
Oh, yeah. Good.
My name's Brian.
Yeah. Very good.
Brion. Because they have a whole accent thing that I struggle with. But, yeah.
Brion.
That was my name in French class. So.
Brion.
Brion.
Very good. Yeah, it's good that you change your name to sound more French too, because a lot of people will be like, "Je m'appelle Brian," and although yes, that is your name, it's sometimes hard for people. I always would say my name is Gregoire because in French it's Gregoire. Instead of Greg. It's like Gregory, but they say Gregoire, and people they got it instantly.
It's mine. Tony. No,
Tony, you'll be Anthony. I don't know. That's kind of Italian-y.
Antoine?
Antoine? That might be a good one.
I'm sure they have their own. So I have here, it was published in the LA Times just yesterday. Isn't this exciting? How not to be a terrible tourist in 10 easy steps. So because this problem has just gotten worse especially the anti-tourism, and there's certain tourists that are really bad. Oh, I don't know. Besides Americans. So, but I think also Russian tourists, and there are a few tourist groups that can be really rough on, maybe not as concerned about the locals as perhaps their own fun.
I just think it's like in consideration. Because I'm like so considerate of it that I'm like, I know I wouldn't be that annoying tourist, I don't even like to stand in the way of a sidewalk or something. I'm like, oh, let me get out of the way so nobody,
I love this article because they talked about the impact of tourism, that every tourist leaves a footprint. Oh, yeah. And that's a great thing to think about. You are leaving a mark on the country you just were in. So some tourists leave a bigger impact, causing frustration among locals. So you want to think about who you are. The aim is to be a considerate traveler, as you said, and avoid being that tourist. And I'm putting quotes around that. That problem.
That Caron.
Le Caron.
Le Caron.
So number one, support your local businesses. This, and I remember going to Spain and shopping at H&M, and now I regret that. I should have gone to more local fare, but so be it. And I did that in London too. Oh my goodness. That was all about the change. But supporting local businesses is good. Avoid buying cheap souvenirs. Purchase from local bakeries, grocery stores, and artisans. I'm a huge fan of this.
Same.
Yeah.
That's all I want to do is eat locally.
Yes. And remember that the people who live there need their bakeries and their grocery stores. So you're supporting their economy. So very good. Number 2, you're a guest, so act like it. Treat cities as more than just monuments. Respect the local people. We've all heard about the really scary things where I think in Pompeii, some tourists, I don't know, I don't think they were American. They scratched their whole family's initials in Pompeii. Or was it? Yeah. It was in Pompeii, yeah. Yeah, I mean, really horrific. I mean, I can't even imagine they would have done that. Or also, people going and posing at Holocaust memorials and smiling and, doing very inappropriate things. We've got to be respectful of the monument, of the people around them, and to respect the local people and what's going on. So we just need to be respectful in general. We need to consider ourselves temporary but integral as a citizen there. So we're temporary, we're just visiting, but we're still part of the fabric. So let's not screw the fabric up. Show respect and coexist. Number 2, consider alternative locales. So avoid the crowded tourist spots, especially during big events. They were using an example like the Paris Olympics, and to not go to Paris during the Olympics, to go elsewhere. But I heard so many people cleared out of Paris. Actually, Paris might have been a good place to visit during the Paris Olympics because apparently it was empty.
Oh, wow.
Which is the same for LA. LA was in the 1984 Olympics. It was a ghost town here during the
They're
Olympics.
already starting to announce the Karen Bass has said that they want businesses to let people work from home during the Olympics and before. So
we'll see what happens.
I know.
Karen Bass is the LA mayor.
Los Angeles, yes.
Yes, of Los Angeles. So, Brian, avoid your crowded tourist spots during big events. Explore lesser known areas filled with hidden gems. So you're going to Lourdes, which is to see the healing waters of Lourdes.
Ooh.
But do consider that's probably a big tourist spot. Do consider walking around and getting more of a flavor of the town and the area.
Oh, for sure. I've already, like, I want to watch the sunset. Like, the Airbnb I got, you can see the sunset and part of, like, the grotto and everything. So, yeah, I planned it out to where I'm going to enjoy the little town.
That'll be
everything.
amazing.
Yeah.
It'll be great. It's number 4. Think sustainably. Now this term is so overused. I think we're all kind of sick of it. But use public transport, bicycles, electric vehicles. I don't know about you, but I love to use public transportation when I don't like to rent a car when I'm in a foreign country. That's just me. I don't trust myself to drive, especially on the wrong side of the street or whatever they're doing over there in England. I had trouble enough. I mean, walking on the right side of the street.
It's already dangerous enough.
It's already dangerous. But I love to take, the subways, the tube, the train. Even taxis are just wonderful because it's just a different experience. It's just so great to go on other transportation. Stay longer in one place to reduce your carbon footprint. So try to stay as, long. And the one travel expert said, less movement is always better. Which I actually kind of like. I love to pretend I live in a place, even if it's just for a few days.
That is true.
Number 5, be curious and friendly. Show interest in local life and culture, not just the tourist attractions. This was kind of resonant to me. I was just in Florence this past year, not in 2023. And one thing about Florence that we had an apartment there. We rented an apartment that ended up being kind of a good thing because we could cook or bring food home and do all that sort of thing. But the other thing we could do, go to the little local pharmacy, go to the little farmer's market. But also what was cool is there was a little museum across this way that no one ever went to. What do you find out? It was Michelangelo's apartment.
What?
And it was this, and you could see it from our apartment. You could look right down into it, and it was some of the most beautiful art I have seen. And it was just spectacular. You're like, this is an amazing place. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful establishment that was just, tucked away. Florence has so many museums. I don't know how you do them all. But that was just kind of one of those special things. I mean, yeah, we went to the tourist sites, but it was so cool to do something other people don't do. And then what was also cool, I have a friend who lives in Florence, and she took us to a big local hangout, and it was so cool. And she took us to her favorite place to get a glass of wine, and where there are no Americans. I mean, but it was just so amazing. Just
I love that.
Absolutely amazing. So, show interest. One travel expert who lives in one of the countries said, I'm happy when people ask me about the cheese, who works in a cheese shop, but very happy when they ask me about other things. So, yeah, be curious. Be curious. Number 6, be aware of your presence. Avoid contributing to overcrowding in popular spots. This again and again, this is why there was so much vitriol against tourism in Europe. If you see a long line at a trendy spot, consider visiting a less crowded place. Avoid overcrowding tiny streets and popular tourist destinations. You got that?
I hate waiting in line, and I hate being in crowds, so I'm good there.
Sounds like you're going to fit right in. Number 7, contribute to local preservation. Attend local events. Do you see a theme here? Example, donations to help restore historic sites like Amsterdam's Westerkerk. What's so interesting to me is I've been hit up before about, like, you go into a museum and they'll have like a little donation bowl and stuff. I do try to give to those when I'm in a foreign country, because I'm like, I'm not a local. I'm going to, pay for this experience, even though they have lots of free museums and lots of places, but they ask for donations. So, this one person said, it makes me feel good to be part of this. One visitor said that. Number 8 is to embrace cultural differences. Be prepared for differences in services like lack of air conditioning and tipping norms. But what's so funny to me is because this is going back to that Spain when I was there years ago. I was in Barcelona, and I'm like, it was a unbelievable heat wave, and I was on the 7th floor, and it was outrageously hot. Ooh. And I called down to the front desk, and I said, oh, my room is so hot. I go, I don't think the air conditioning's working. Well, they said there's no air conditioning on the first 7 floors, only above that. They said we only air conditioning the upper floors.
I wonder why that is.
I don't know, but what could I do?
Can I move up one?
I did ask. They said it was full.
Oh, no wonder. Wonder why.
It just cracked me up. I'm like, well, I would have never guessed that one. You're bringing an adapter?
Yes.
Okay.
I found it today. I was like looking everywhere, and I even had to take a break because of the heat. But yeah, I found it.
They're easy to get at the airport if you forget, but it's good.
I just didn't want to worry about anything. I just wanted to be ready and set. So I did find it.
One of the Paris hotel receptionists had the best quote. She said, "Sometimes I just want to say to people, oh yes, let me go out back and pluck one of those off the tree where they grow." Because people ask for outrageous things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people don't even think about getting that at all.
Number 9, patience and politeness go a long way. Service workers are doing their best to help you, even in tough situations. Keep calm, document issues, communicate politely, avoid making obvious jokes, and using fake accents. So don't do a mocking fake French accent, but the French do appreciate when you try.
Yeah.
So
when you really truly
try to affect the French accent when you're speaking French, as opposed to don't use a French accent when you're speaking English there. And 10, respect and awareness. Travel with respect and awareness. Aim to be a responsible, considerate traveler. Your actions make a positive or a negative impact on the places you visit. And let your travels leave a positive footprint. Good?
I like it.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that wraps up the show for today. Reminder to like, subscribe, give us 5 stars. Links to studies, go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/Dr. Greg. If you have any questions, hit us up on socials at Ask Dr. Greg. It's Brian, Tony, and Dr. Greg bidding you farewell. Until next time, be present, be flexible, and be kind.